Sign the papers, Julian. It's just for show. Finn is ill. You know how important it is for him to stay calm and happy. Willow's voice, flat and distant, twisted the knife already lodged deep in my chest. The divorce papers lay before me, stark white against the dark wood of the dining table. My wedding band, a simple silver band I'd rarely taken off since our ceremony, felt like a brand of fire in my clenched fist. No frantic arguments, no desperate pleas. There was only the dull thud of finality as I pressed the pen to the dotted line. My signature, bold and unwavering, felt like the last gasp of a dying dream. As I rose to leave, I heard their laughter from the living room. Willow's friends, always present, always loud. One of them, a woman I barely knew, giggled. "What did your husband owe you in a past life, Willow? He's so obedient. You could probably ask him for anything, and he'd agree." Willow's languid reply floated back, laced with a casual cruelty that made my blood run cold. "Want to bet? In a month at the registry office, he'll be on his knees, begging me." They bet on my heartbreak. They gambled on my desperation. They expected tears, pleas, a broken man clinging to the wreckage. But a month later, when I stood before the registrar, holding the decree that officially severed our ties, my eyes were dry, my hands steady. The world outside felt oddly muted, as if muffled by a thick layer of cotton. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message. "Will you marry me this time?" It was the anniversary of my mother's passing, a day I always spent in quiet reflection. Willow had chosen this day, of all days, to present the signed divorce papers. She looked serene, as if handing me a grocery list. I lowered my gaze, but not before I caught the faint, almost imperceptible curve of her lips as she hunched over her phone, typing. I knew, with a sickening certainty, who she was messaging. Finn, her white moonlight, her idealized first love, the man who cast a long, cold shadow over our marriage. Our life together had begun to fracture the moment Finn fell ill. I tried to mend the cracks, to hold us together, but each attempt was met with Willow's sharp disapproval. "He's a patient, Julian. How can you be so petty? How can you be so cold?" Her accusations always silenced me, leaving me speechless, feeling like the villain in my own story. Now, with the freshly printed divorce papers before me, their ink still reeking of the printer's heat, I looked up, intending to speak. But my gaze snagged on a faint, bruised mark on her neck, a hickey barely concealed by her collar. The casual intimacy between her and Finn, once veiled by her careful excuses, now stood exposed, stark and undeniable. In that moment, I understood. No matter how much I deluded myself, our marriage had long since soured, rotting from the inside out. Perhaps my calm startled her. A flicker of confusion crossed Willow's face. She glanced at her watch, then spoke, her voice laced with an indifference that stung more than any anger. "These papers are just for show, Julian. Finn is ill, you know." I cut her off. "I know. Finn is a patient, and patients need to stay happy." I'd heard that line countless times. Each time, she'd used it to coerce my patience, to demand my understanding for her inexplicable closeness with Finn. Once I would have erupted, fought tooth and nail. But now, looking at her careless signature on the divorce papers, all fight drained from me. My heart felt like a still, placid lake, without a single ripple. "Do you know what date it is, Willow?" I asked, my voice surprisingly even. She barely paused. "Of course. It's the anniversary of your mother's passing." The words choked in my throat. There was nothing more to say. She seemed to agree, pushing the papers closer. "Just sign it." Her impatience was palpable. The wedding ring on my finger burned. I squeezed it, the metal biting into my skin, then picked up the pen and signed. In that instant, I knew our marriage had ended long ago. Willow meticulously folded the papers and tucked them into a folder. Her voice was flat. "You should move out for a while, these next few days. I want Finn to stay here. He won't be comfortable or happy if you're around." My heart turned to ash. This, then, was what absolute desolation felt like. I swallowed the burning tears, my eyes scanning the room, every corner of which I had meticulously arranged, a labor of love for what I thought was our home. Now, it was a mocking testament to my own blindness. On my way out, I bumped into Willow's friends. They were laughing boisterously, one of them giving my shoulder a dismissive shove before offering a half-hearted, mocking apology. I didn't respond, simply stumbled down the stairs like a lost soul. The night wind, typically a welcome balm, now felt like a scorching inferno against my feverish skin. Only then did I realize I'd forgotten my phone. When I returned, the house was bright with laughter. Willow sat on the sofa, sipping wine, surrounded by her friends. Their merriment died abruptly when they saw me. Willow's face tightened in annoyance. "What are you doing back? Can you not be so shameless?" I shook my head, retrieved my phone, and turned to leave. Before the door could fully close, their laughter erupted again. "Look at him, like a stray dog with nowhere to go. Willow, what did your husband owe you in a past life? He's so completely under your thumb." Another burst of laughter. "Or, that's what you call a devoted husband. He'll agree to anything, even divorce. You could ask him for something truly outrageous, and he wouldn't dare refuse." My hand lingered on the doorknob. I wanted to be truly done, truly dead inside, yet a fragile thread of hope still snagged in my heart. A moment later, Willow's voice, dripping with amusement, floated through the gap. "All right, let's make a bet. Let's see if he really goes through with this divorce. Today's his mother's memorial. A month from now is his father's. I'll make him meet us at the registrar's then, and I'll bring Finn along. Finn loves a good show, so let's give him something to laugh about." I stood there, silently gazing at the brightly lit room, the woman inside suddenly terrifyingly alien. For Finn, she would do anything, sacrificing self-respect, compassion, even our shared history. What about me? We were childhood sweethearts, growing up side by side. How could she treat me like this? Willow and I had known each other since we were small. Our parents, close friends, would often joke about us marrying if we ever fell in love. After my parents died, her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, took me in. They treated me with immense kindness, like their own son. But even so, I always felt like a guest, a burden, careful with every word, every action. As Willow grew, she was no longer the little girl who followed my every step. She developed her own thoughts, her own desires, her own crushes. Though I loved her fiercely, seeing her as the only anchor in my life, I chose to be her friend, silently protecting her from afar. At school, Willow and Finn were the golden couple, talented, beautiful, perfectly matched. Everyone assumed they would end up together, and I, in their eyes, was merely a faint shadow trailing behind. For a year, while they dated, Willow constantly argued with her parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thorne disapproved of Finn, wanting her to marry me instead. Willow, in turn, grew to resent me, avoiding me as if I carried a plague. Few knew we had grown up together. I tried desperately to bridge the gap between her and her parents, but it was useless. They remained adamant. She had to break up with Finn. Willow held firm for a year, until Finn applied for an overseas scholarship. That's when she came to me, begging me to give up my scholarship slot for him. Finn left shortly after, only to send a breakup message from abroad. When she received it, Willow choked back sobs, then frantically ran out into the pouring rain, declaring she would fly to Eldoria to find him. The rain was relentless. She stumbled, soaked to the bone, but missed the earliest flight. I couldn't let her go alone, so I went with her. We arrived to find Finn kissing another woman. Willow's eyes turned red, her body trembling as she stood frozen not far away, on the verge of collapsing. I could only stand by, watching her world shatter. After we returned, one day, she asked me, "Would you ever betray me, Julian?" I said no. She gave a small, tear-stained smile. "Then, if not, will you stay with me?" And so, we were together. After graduation, with Mr. and Mrs. Thorne's blessings, Willow and I registered our marriage and held a grand wedding. I believed then that we would be happy together for the rest of our lives. But 3 years later, Finn returned. He appeared frail, teary-eyed, sobbing as he told Willow he'd broken up with her because of a debilitating illness. He didn't want Willow to suffer with him. Then he looked at her and said, "I miss you so much. I truly can't bear this longing. Could you just be with me for a while? I don't want to have any regrets." And Willow went back to him. Time and again, she abandoned me for him. I stood below, gazing up at the brightly lit windows of what was once my home. Now those lights shone for someone else. A week later, Finn appeared in my office, pale and smiling weakly. Then Willow walked in, her heels clicking crisply. She let out a gentle sigh as Finn closed his eyes briefly, taking a deep breath. Her soft gaze, which had been on him, hardened when it landed on me. Finn doesn't want to stay at home doing nothing all day, so I've arranged for him to join the company. Julian, clear out your office. This space is for Finn. His health is delicate. He needs a lot of sunlight, and this office has the best light. I looked up at Finn. He smiled provocatively, yet his voice was deceptively humble. Willow, a true gentleman doesn't take what others cherish. Julian's good here. I don't want to take his spot. Just give me any place where I can see you. Willow, melting with pity, immediately snapped at me. What are you standing there for? This is my company. Don't think that just because you brought in a few big clients, you can act this way with me. My assistant, Chloe, started to interject, but I raised a hand to stop her. I stood, gathered my belongings, and prepared to leave the office as Willow demanded. But she wasn't finished. The project you're negotiating with Ms. Iris handed over to Finn as well. He just returned from Eldoria and is an old classmate of Ms. Iris. They'll surely have a lot in common, which can bring in more profit for me. My pupils constricted. Chloe couldn't hold back. CEO Thorne. Mr. Thorne worked sleepless nights for a month on this project. He finally secured a meeting with Ms. Iris. How can you just hand it over to someone else so easily? What if Mr. Finn isn't familiar with the project process? Willow frowned, giving me a cold glance. Finn chuckled softly, wrapping an arm around her waist. Come on, Willow. I know you're doing this for me. I can take another project. Even with my poor health, I'll try my best. Willow looked at Finn with tender affection, then turned back to me, her face stone cold. All right, it's settled then. Chloe started to protest again, but I stopped her once more. As we moved my belongings to a smaller, less desirable office, Chloe fumed. Mr. Thorne, how can you let them take all your hard work like this? You slaved away for a month on that project. It's not fair. You and CEO Thorne are married, yet she treats you like a stranger. I offered a weak smile. It's fine. We're already divorced. We're just waiting for the 1-month period to finalize it. I'm planning to quit anyway. Chloe fell silent, her head bowed, as she helped me pack. Just before closing time, Willow tapped lightly on my new desk. MS. Iris is free to meet tonight. Finn just arrived and hasn't found a reliable assistant yet. And since this project was originally yours, you should go with him tonight as his assistant. Don't let him get too tired. Her casual expectation made me want to laugh. Should I thank her for still considering me reliable? I was about to refuse, but then I remembered Chloe. Her father was seriously ill, and she was counting on the commission from this project. I couldn't let Finn mess it up. Uneasy, Willow decided to come along as well. When I saw Ms. Iris, I froze. A familiar face from my distant past materialized before me. Ms. Iris's eyes curved, and she offered a radiant smile. She didn't look at Willow or shake Finn's hand. Instead, she walked directly to me. Julian, long time no see. I'm Iris Chun. Hearing those 3 words, I stiffened, finally recognizing her. My mother had been a high school teacher. Years ago, in her class, there was a student from a difficult family background whom my mother took a special interest in. Sometimes, my mother would invite her home for a meal. Back then, Iris was very thin, with sun-darkened skin, swallowed by an oversized, faded school uniform. The little girl stood shyly in our living room, frail and quiet. She would only offer a soft greeting before silently bowing her head to do her homework. After my parents passed away, I moved in with the Thorns and never saw her again. Meeting her again after all these years, an indescribable surge of emotion welled within me, a blend of familiarity and strangeness tinged with joy. I imagined my mother, if she were alive, will be so happy to see us reunite. Finn seemed momentarily flustered, glancing nervously at Willow. Willow's expression stiffened slightly, but she managed a strained smile. MS. Iris, this is our company's new director, Finn. He's currently in charge of this project. Julian is his assistant now. Willow intended to say more, but Iris cut her off, her voice cool and casual. I don't care about your internal company drama. Julian was the one negotiating with me before. I only recognize him and will only discuss this project with him. Willow's face clouded over. Just then, Finn suddenly clutched his chest, letting out a small moan of pain. Willow immediately panicked, dropping everything to grasp his hand. Finn, what's wrong? Iris smirked, a cold laugh escaping her lips. A normal person's heart is on the left, but this gentleman seems to be clutching his right. Did I just encounter someone special whose heart is on the other side? Finn was so embarrassed he didn't know whether to let go or switch hands. He stood rigid, shooting a pleading glance at Willow. Willow patted his hand gently, murmuring reassuringly, I know you're just trying to help me save face. She quickly regained her composure, smiling at Iris. Very well. If you insist on discussing with the assistant, I'll take Finn home first. He's unwell and needs rest. With that, she turned to me, her eyes filled with reproach, as if I had deliberately upstaged Finn and humiliated him. I remained silent. In her gaze, I saw no affection, only coldness and unfamiliarity. A month later, I was still staying at a hotel. When Willow texted me to meet at the registrar's office, I looked at the wedding ring on my hand and offered a faint smile. Before leaving, I tossed it into the trash. My ring finger felt strangely empty, leaving a pale indentation that weighed heavy on my heart. Outside the registrar's office, Willow stood with her group of friends. Beside her, Finn held her hand tightly. Everyone watched me, eyes eager, as if expecting me to fall to my knees and beg her not to divorce me. Willow hooked her arm through Finn's, a faint, complacent smile curving her lips, looking utterly triumphant. I looked at her, and the words she'd joked to her friends a month ago echoed in my mind. He'll be on his knees, begging me at the registrar's office. I asked softly, Willow, do you know what day it is today? She gave a dismissive laugh. Of course. Every year I'm forced to remember this day. I'm sick of it. I smiled too, but the pain in my chest tightened like iron chains constricting my heart, cutting into my flesh and bone. I closed my eyes, then calmly walked inside with her to finalize the procedures. The clerk at the registrar's office probably hadn't seen a couple bringing a whole entourage to their divorce. He frowned, asking, Are you both sure? No regrets. Before Willow could speak, I answered clearly, No regrets. She looked at me, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. Behind her, Finn let out a soft cough. Willow immediately turned, her face etched with worry. Finn offered a weak smile, his voice soft. Willow, you don't have to do this for me. I'm not important. As long as you're happy. Perhaps Julian is just angry. You two should talk it over. Hearing those words, Willow's gaze returned to me, chillingly cold. She scoffed. What's there to say? Just make sure you don't come begging me to remarry you later. Soon, the divorce certificate was in my hand. Its red color was as vibrant as our marriage certificate from years ago. Only now its meaning was a stark opposite. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a call from Mr. Thorne. He asked why Willow and I weren't home yet, saying the memorial offerings were all prepared. Below that, a new message from Iris. I didn't open it immediately. First, I answered the call. Mr. Thorne, I said softly. Thank you, both you and Mrs. Thorne. Willow and I have divorced. I will visit my father's grave alone. A long silence stretched on the other end. I softly added, goodbye, then hung up. Willow's friends scoffed and laughed. Listen to him, so serious. Isn't he just trying to put on an act to reel her back in? One step back, two steps forward, right? I ignored them, opening Iris's message. For the past month, since learning of my impending divorce, Iris had been quietly by my side. I was intimately familiar with the look in her eyes now, the same look I once held for Willow, and the same look Willow held for Finn. In the years we hadn't seen each other, Iris had transformed. She was confident, decisive, and had straightforwardly expressed her desire to be with me. This time, she had the courage to ask, "Will you marry me this time?" On the screen, the typing indicator flickered, hesitated, then disappeared. I knew she was flustered, uncertain. I glanced at Willow and Finn, still holding hands, and felt a strange surge of strength within me. I typed back to Iris, a single word, "Yes." The moment I sent my message, hers popped up simultaneously. "It's okay, I was just kidding." Immediately after, she unsent it. I felt a fleeting regret for my impulsive action, but seeing her quick retraction, an odd sense of relief washed over me. I didn't look at Willow again, simply turned and walked away. This time, I truly had to let go. But I never imagined that the very next morning, Mr. and Mrs. Thorne would be at my door. They looked at me with eyes full of sorrow, their voices trembling. "Such a huge thing happened. Julian, why didn't you tell us?" I offered a strained smile, trying to change the subject, but Mr. Thorne sighed heavily, then called Willow, telling her to come home immediately. "You two need to talk this through. Divorce is no small matter." Then he handed me a prenatal test result, his voice urgent. "For the sake of the child, Julian, please talk to Willow, all right?" Not long after, Willow returned, her face stormy. She stormed in, snapping, "Why did you call me back? I have things to do." Mr. Thorne let out a heavy breath, slamming his hand on the table. "I heard you took extended leave to be with that boy. How will outsiders view Julian if you act like this?" Willow's patience snapped, her voice sharp. "Dad, I'm your daughter. Julian is fine and healthy, but Finn is different. He's sick and weak. You always take his side." Mrs. Thorne sighed. "When Julian's parents died, we promised to look after him for them. Willow, you cannot be ungrateful. If not for his parents, do you think you would be standing here safely?" I unconsciously looked at Willow. Indeed, her face darkened. She glared at me, her voice trembling with rage, even her ears flushed crimson. "Julian, I know your parents died saving me. All these years, I've tried to be good to you, try to love you, but love isn't something you can force. Are you trying to bind me with a sense of obligation?" Hearing those words, I stood in stunned silence. Mr. Thorne's face turned scarlet with fury. He raised his hand and struck her hard across the face. "Ungrateful child." Seeing the tension and remembering Mr. Thorne's high blood pressure, I quickly helped him sit down. "Mr. Thorne, please don't be angry. I'm fine." Willow glared at me with icy eyes, about to argue, but Mrs. Thorne gently pinched her arm, forcing her to silence. The air in the room grew thick, suffocating. Finally, I stood up, stifling the lump in my throat. I told Mr. and Mrs. Thorne that I had some company matters to attend to and had to leave. As I closed the door, Mr. Thorne's angry voice suddenly pierced through it, trembling with rage. "How can you treat Julian like that? Aren't you afraid he'll hate you? What moral obligation? You tricked him, and that's one thing. But if we hadn't turned a blind eye all those years ago, if we hadn't helped you cover up the truth, Julian would have known much sooner." The last sentence was cut off abruptly, the sound choked mid-sentence. Then came the hurried footsteps towards the door. Instinctively, I ducked around the corner, hiding in the hallway. The door burst open, and Mrs. Thorne peered out, looking around before letting out a sigh of relief. "What are you shouting about? Luckily, Julian has left. Don't say anything more." Hearing that, my heart clenched. From Mr. Thorne's words, coupled with Mrs. Thorne's panicked reaction, I realized they were concealing a secret that, if exposed, would shatter everything. I dare not think further. My feet stumbled, and I practically fled the house. Below the company building, Iris was waiting, her face heavy with worry. She looked at me, her eyes revealing hesitation and fear. I asked, a little confused, "What's wrong? Do you need my help?" Iris took a deep breath, handed me her phone, her voice a slight tremor. "Julian, your parents' deaths, they're connected to Willow." My heart stopped. My hands clenched so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream that she was lying, making things up, but seeing the red rims of her eyes, I hesitated. Finally, I trembling opened a video on her phone. The image was slightly blurry, the camera shaky, but I clearly recognized Mr. Thorne, Mrs. Thorne, and Willow. They were on a rooftop. The audio was interspersed with a whistling wind. Mr. Thorne's voice, sometimes close, sometimes distant, but every word clear. You're already with Julian, so you should treat him well. And now you're pregnant. Don't cause any more trouble. With this child, everything will be complete. But what if Julian finds out about that year? If you hadn't mischievously deflated the car tires on purpose, his parents wouldn't have had that accident. You dared to mess with the tires and still got in the car. Luckily, they shielded you. We truly owe Julian so much. Then came Willow's exasperated voice. What's there to be afraid of? Julian loves me so much. What if he finds out the truth? A few sweet words, and he'll be fine. Anyway, I was young then, I didn't understand. If I don't want this baby, I'll abort it. I'll have another one for Julian later to make up for it. The video shook violently, then stopped with a stifled sob. Following, there was Iris's weeping in the audio recording. When the video ended, Iris, before me, was crying uncontrollably, tears streaming down her face, her shoulders shaking. She clutched her phone, choking out, 3 months ago, my friend was hospitalized. I visited her and accidentally overheard them talking on a rooftop. I hesitated, wondering if I should tell you. I know you loved Willow so much, always. I was afraid you wouldn't be able to bear it if I told you, so I tried to keep it hidden. I held it in for 2 months, telling myself that if you two were happy, I would stay silent forever. But Willow treated you like this because of Finn. I don't want you to be hurt anymore. She doesn't deserve your love. Maybe I'm being too impulsive, but I truly couldn't bear it any longer. I watched her sob, a suffocating chaos swirling in my chest. After a long time, I finally felt the blood flowing through my veins again. I reached out and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks, my voice hoarse. When I left the house today, I overheard a few words from Mr. and Mrs. Thorne. Combined with their reactions, I already suspected something. I recounted every word of Mr. and Mrs. Thorne's conversation to her. When I finished, I gave a small, bitter laugh. I'm not stupid. Even if you hadn't told me today, I would have found out the truth myself. But thank you regardless. Thank you for helping my parents find some justice. Iris continued to cry, tears tracing paths down her cheeks, soaking into my trembling hands. She suddenly threw her arms around me, her voice choked and trembling. Julian, my teacher, Mr. Chun, he was very good to me. You could say he saved me. If it weren't for him, my own parents would have sold me off. Please don't be sad anymore. I'm here. I'll be your family, your friend. I'll always be by your side, forever. Iris's tears soaked my shirt, cold and damp, making me slightly uncomfortable. But strangely, my heart felt a peace I'd never known. Since my parents died, I had closed my heart. My entire world consisted only of Willow. I had no friends, no other family. In my eyes, Willow, Mr. Thorne, and Mrs. Thorne were both friends and family. But their actions had made me realize that, from beginning to end, I had always been alone. Until Iris appeared. She made me see that I wasn't the only lonely soul in this world. There was someone who truly cared for me, worried about me, and shed tears for me. I had just finished drying her tears when Willow's sharp voice suddenly rang out behind us. Julian, what are you doing? Her voice was shrill, filled with fury and disbelief. She stared at me, her eyes piercing through me. Why are you holding her? What's your relationship with her? The rage in her eyes could almost turn to fire. It was ironic. She looked as though I was the one who had betrayed her. I tightened my grip on Iris's hand. Her hand was soft and warm. That warmth traveled up my arm, making the ice-cold heart in my chest tremble. I looked directly into Willow's stunned eyes, my voice calm. Willow, by what right do you question me? You're my ex-wife. As for Iris, we made plans yesterday. I'm going to marry her. Willow scoffed, her laugh bright and cold as a blade. Julian, aren't you ashamed to say that? Everyone knows you're my loyal dog. If I told you to go east, you wouldn't dare go west, and now you're talking about marrying someone else. She stepped closer, her voice laced with contempt. Don't think I'll be scared by these words. Let me tell you, don't dream. If you keep playing these games, I'll never remarry you. I said nothing more, simply took a deep breath, releasing the knot of bitterness in my chest, and pulled Iris away. I didn't want to look at Willow's face for another second. Everything had happened too suddenly. I hadn't had time to prepare myself. Now, all I wanted was a quiet corner to escape the chaos in my head. But Willow's voice, sharp as ever, called out behind us. Julian, stop right there. I paused, turning back, my eyes devoid of warmth. What else do you want? She walked in front of me, blocking my path, staring intently before uttering a sentence that sent a chill through my heart. I'm pregnant. It's your child. I looked down at her belly, where a tiny life was growing. A life that should have been loved, but now only brought a bitter, suffocating pain. Willow was young then, and the incident had happened too long ago. The statute of limitations had passed. There was nothing I could do, nor did I dare face her or Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, much less confront this child. Though there was a time I had yearned for this baby to be born, with the brutal truth exposed, leaving only raw, bleeding wounds, its existence felt like a cruel irony, a heavy burden. I loved Willow. I once respected Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, but now I hated them too. Yet, I couldn't erase the good they had done for me, even if that good stemmed from guilt and remorse. I remembered that night I had a high fever, delirious, in a torrential rain, when the car couldn't make it up the mountain. Mr. and Mrs. Thorne took turns carrying me down to the hospital. Because of that, Mrs. Thorne suffered a miscarriage. They didn't blame me, nor did they allow Willow to blame me. The human heart is inherently soft. I felt their sincerity, devoid of ulterior motives. But now, with the truth laid bare, I no longer had the courage to face them. Even if it came out, Willow wouldn't be punished. She was too young back then. I understood that they wanted to protect their daughter's reputation. That was a parent's instinct. I understood, but I couldn't accept it. I looked at Willow before me, a strange mix of bitterness, coldness, and a morbid curiosity stirring within me. What else did she intend to do? I don't understand why you're telling me this, I said softly, my voice so calm that even I heard the chilling indifference in it. We're divorced. Willow scoffed, glancing at me with disdain. You always wanted children. This baby came unexpectedly. Initially, I wasn't going to keep it. I was afraid my mother wouldn't be happy, but she's so kind. She said it was a life, so she told me to keep it. I remember you and my mother are both Rh negative. Finn is sick now and needs a bone marrow donor. You should get tested to see if you're a match. Even if you're not, you should still come to the hospital during his surgery. Rh negative is rare. To ensure Finn's safety, you must come. If not for my mother, this baby wouldn't have been kept. You owe my mother for this. I cut her off, my voice soft yet firm. Then abort it. She stared, astonished, her face paling. What did you say? I looked straight into her eyes, repeating, my voice even calmer. You can abort it. I don't care anymore. Willow seemed to lose her composure. She looked at me with a bewildered expression, her lips pressed tightly, as if unable to believe what she'd just heard. I only felt weary, exhausted to my bones. I know everything about what you did that year. Hearing me, Willow's face went utterly white, her lips trembling, unable to utter a word. I didn't bother with her reaction anymore, simply looked at her and asked the question I had suppressed for so many years. Willow, I never wronged you. You owe my parents a life. You caused their deaths. You wronged us. So why? Why did you have to treat me this way? She didn't answer, only turned and fled, stumbling, staggering away like a lost soul. I watched her retreating figure until she disappeared, my heart sinking, both aching and empty. Iris squeezed my hand, trying to pull me out of my emotions, her voice gentle. Are you still planning to stay here? I looked at her, slightly surprised. She lowered her head, gently touching her nose, a little shy. My teacher and his mentor are both buried in Oak Haven. How about we move there? I looked into it. You chose to stay in Riverbend because of Willow. If she's no longer here, then come to Oak Haven with me. I have a company there. It's much larger than Willow's. You can work whenever you want. I believe with your abilities, my company will thrive even more. And if you're tired and don't want to work, that's fine. I can support you. Don't be embarrassed. You're my teacher's son. You deserve it. I looked at Iris's serious face and couldn't help but chuckle softly. Turning my head to look at the sign of my old company, I said, I have an assistant, Chloe. Her hometown is also Oak Haven. I'll ask her if she wants to come along. You're right. There's no point in staying here anymore. Once I sell the house, I'll move there. Years ago, when I was in college in Riverbend, I bought a small apartment. After marrying Willow, she wanted to live in the family mansion, so we moved out. That apartment remained empty all those years because it was where we'd spend our brief, peaceful days. Now, as I wanted to step into the future, everything from the past needed to be put to rest. Just as I was contacting a buyer, my phone rang. It was Mr. Thorne. Looking at the flashing screen, I hesitated for a long time before answering. When I met Mr. and Mrs. Thorne again, their hair had grown whiter, their faces gaunt and visibly aged, though it had only been a week since I last saw them. Mr. Thorne offered a strained smile, his voice hoarse. Julian, you know everything, don't you? I nodded. He gave a small, bitter smile that was heart-wrenching. Mrs. Thorne's tears, however, could not be held back. They streamed down her cheeks. Mr. Thorne spoke, his voice trembling. We're so sorry, Julian. We know an apology means nothing now, but at this moment, we truly don't know what else to say. Whatever compensation you want, we will agree. Even if we lose everything, as long as it brings you some peace, we accept it. That year, we were too afraid. Afraid you wouldn't be able to bear the truth, and even more afraid of how others would look at Willow. Ultimately, we were too selfish. I looked at Mr. Thorne, his eyes red-rimmed, his old face wrinkled with tears. A complex, indescribable sorrow swelled within me. I lost my parents at 10, Mr. and Mrs. Thorne had stepped into my solitary world, playing the role of the parents I had lost. They had their hidden motives, yes, but they had also treated me with genuine affection. Whether it was out of guilt or love, their kindness towards me was real. Before, I always worried, always felt they treated me too well, and I could never truly reciprocate. But now I no longer felt ashamed because I had enough reason not to bow my head. I looked at them both, my voice calm, but laden with a heavy truth. I cannot forgive you, but I also don't know if I should blame you. Was it because of what happened that year that Mrs. Thorne developed depression and Mr. Thorne's health deteriorated, unable to overcome that trauma? All these years, when I knew nothing, you were punishing yourselves, weren't you? I took a deep breath, tried to remain calm as I continued. Before, I always felt you treated me even better than Willow, which is why I try to be better to her, as if to repay your kindness. I always regretted never truly making Willow happy, never loving her the way you loved me. I try to live like you, but now you don't need to feel guilty anymore. I will leave Riverbend. Forgiveness is a decision only my parents have the right to make, and I, as their son, cannot do that for them, and I will not forgive. At this, Mr. Thorne's shoulders trembled slightly. His back seemed to curve further, a crooked, desperate smile appearing on his lips. He quietly paid the bill, then helped Mrs. Thorne leave. They walked slowly, faltering like people in their 70s or 80s, though they were only in their early 50s. A week before my departure, Iris and I happened upon Willow and Finn in the alley behind a diner. They were arguing fiercely. We merely passed by, unnoticed. I clearly heard Willow's angry accusation. Aren't you supposed to be sick? Why are you at a bar? She snatched a small bag containing white powder from his hand, her voice trembling with rage. When did you start with this, Finn? Finn's face went pale. He didn't know what to say. Willow recoiled a step, a desperate smile on her lips. Are you still trying to lie to me? I saw your test results. You're not sick at all. You're thin because you're addicted to drugs. I even investigated, and that year you went overseas and betrayed me. It wasn't because you were sick, but because you were expelled. You were sent back home because of drugs. You've been a liar from start to finish. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, tears and anger blending together. I can't believe I hurt Julian for you. harmed him to this extent? Finn, exposed, immediately changed his tone, his attitude dismissive. So what? Who told you to be stupid enough to believe me? Willow let out a piercing scream, lunging to hit him. But even weakened by drugs, Finn was still a man. He easily shoved her, sending her crashing hard to the ground. She clutched her belly, her face pale, groaning in pain. Fresh blood quickly seeped from between her legs, staining the pavement red. Finn looked at the scene, started to bend down to help her, then stopped. He searched her, taking all her jewelry and wallet, then turned and fled, disappearing into the night. Only Willow remained, sprawled in a pool of blood, her eyes blank and filled with despair. I stood there for a long time, my emotions chaotic, unable to distinguish between hatred, pity, or simply emptiness. Finally, I called for an ambulance, but the child in her womb could not be saved. When I heard the news, I didn't know whether to be happy or sad. Perhaps, between Willow and me, there was now no longer any connection. A few days later, Finn was arrested. Willow was still in the hospital. She had her assistant send me a message, an apology, and a request that, if possible, I could visit her one last time. Iris, packing our belongings beside me, just lowered her head and quietly said, "If you want to go, I'll go with you. It's time to say goodbye to the past, anyway." I looked out the window, shaking my head. No need. It's not worth it anymore. The plane took off. In the passenger cabin's lavatory, I removed my phone SIM card and dropped it into the trash. Outside, white clouds curled under the sun. Iris leaned her head against the seat, falling asleep. I heard her murmur softly in her sleep, "Julian, the first time I met you, I liked you." I unconsciously smiled, recalling the first time I met her. It was a hot summer day. The small girl, wearing an oversized uniform, drenched in sweat, stood at the school gate handing out flyers, looking as shy as Cinderella lost in a world of ice and snow, her eyes bright with curiosity, both bewildered and innocent. When she saw me, she gave a small smile, her soft voice echoing. "Hello, I'm Iris, Chun." The plane began its descent, piercing through the hazy white clouds. The city below gradually emerged. Oakhaven, where I was about to begin a new life. I looked out the window, the morning sunlight falling on every rooftop, shining brightly like a greeting. In my heart, a space that once held such pain now felt strangely light. I used to think some wounds would never heal, that some people, once gone, would be unforgettable. But it turned out that time didn't make me forget them, but taught me to accept that some people can only exist in the past. Iris woke up, rubbing her eyes, and smiled faintly. "Almost there, Julian." I nodded, taking her hand. It was small and warm, more real than anything I had ever held. I didn't know what the future would hold, but at least today, I could smile without feeling pain. After moving to Oakhaven, Iris and I started anew. I taught at a small school near the mountains. She took over her mentor's company. Life was calm, not glamorous, but real with every breath. Sometimes, I still dreamed of my parents. They stood under the sunset, offering gentle smiles. I no longer felt guilt nor hatred. I believed that somewhere far away, they would rest easy, seeing that I had let go. As for the Thorns, after the incident, they left Riverbend, living in seclusion, no one hearing from them again. Willow also vanished without a trace. Finn, I heard, died in a rehabilitation center, his death as quiet as his departure. Everything ended in silence. No one was truly punished, nor truly forgiven. But everyone had to learn to live on. One afternoon, as the sunset cast gold on our porch, Iris sat in the garden arranging white chrysanthemums in a glass vase. She turned to me, her smile gentle. "If we have a child someday, what would you want to name them?" I thought for a moment, then replied softly, "Their name will be Serenity. Because after all the storms, all I wish for is a lifetime of peace and a tranquil heart." I looked up at the sky, painted red at the end of the day, and gently squeezed her hand. The wind carried the faint scent of flowers, drifting by like the flow of time. My life had, at last, truly begun again here.